So, hello everybody. My name is Charlie Wall, and this is Courage, Dear Heart. And today I am joined by the lovely Julie Mosmuller. Welcome, Julie.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Charlie.
Hello, and you're coming to us from India today.
Yes, from South India, Orville, where we have a lot of rain exceptionally today. So I'm glad to be here on this auspicious day with you.
Um, the reason, guys, that I've invited Julie along to talk to us, and I want to introduce you to her, is because I'm inviting her to come along to my Crete retreat because Julie normally resides in Crete. But before we get on to that, I want to ask my question that I ask everybody, which is, I'd love to hear what the word courage means for you, Julie.
Yeah, thank you. I like this question. Um, yeah, the word that comes to me when I think of courage is heart. Heart. And the other thing that really comes to me is to stay true to that, to stay true to our heart, especially when it speaks differently than other voices, maybe within us or around us. And I guess I'm seeing that also quite politically, in the sense that I'm not the only one who's seeing that, a lot of rise in toxic masculinity. And so also quite a lot of pushback against feminism and exploring femininity, women's work, and this kind of thing. So personally, I feel like an added dimension to my work, like an added motivation to pick up that courage and to not let that kind of push back, push the important work that you, me, many women are doing in the world, and to spread the awareness around what the healthy feminine looks like and how to expand feminine power in a way that's not patriarchal, that's not masculine, but has its own particular way of expressing itself. And I guess it's been very powerful because that's why there is such a backlash. And I can feel there's a part of me within that feels like, oh, I want to hide a little bit from that, or maybe not be so visible. But then there's another part of me, which I call my wild woman, that I feel very strongly these years of perimenopause, of the opposite of hiding away, but actually being even more visible and having that courage to stand up truly for what I believe is very important and what I know is very important for many women. So
So, have you had any personal backlash then from people around your work?
um, I have noticed a lot. I mean, not specifically that I really trace it back to that toxic masculinity. I mean, maybe sometimes a rare comment here or there, but I have seen the last year a lot of responses from women coming from the shadow feminine. So a lot of responses coming from competition, from backstabbing, from gossip, from not being comfortable with a powerful woman speaking out, you know, commenting on small things that are about perfectionism and not really about what the message is about.
Okay.
Yeah, I've not experienced that so much. I mean, it's also part of my personal journey. I've been doing women's work for almost 10 years now. And I've always, received so much beauty of it, as I'm sure you have, and many of us have. But the last year and a half, I've also really had to face the shadow side of it. Yeah. Yeah, which I believe is very important, because, we are, as women, we still grow up, we're still shaped by a society that's not post-patriarchal, that's still in many ways patriarchal. So, we have to find our way in that. And there are some unhealthy ways that we still have within us, I mean, often subconsciously. Yeah, so bringing that to the light, I think, is very important. That takes a lot of courage also, for each of us. Like, also because when these things happen to me, of course, I also see within, like, hey, okay, is there something there that's also that I'm bringing out? Even though I've been doing this work for so long, and I've been working a lot on leaving those toxic patterns behind. But yeah, sometimes it takes courage to acknowledge that, oh yeah, I did do that in a little bit also. I take responsibility for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really important that you speak to that, because my personal opinion is that the narrative around toxic masculinity is seeded into females, and then there's this collusion around men, and it's not something I personally agree with or have in my field, just because I think there are very good men out there,
Yeah,
and I think women can also have many shadow aspects. So I think it can be both. That's just my
absolutely.
personal opinion.
Yeah.
And it takes courage, like you say, to stand up and put your head above the sort of parapet and say these things, which goes against a paradigm that's trying to seed women with this idea of toxic masculinity. I'm not saying that there isn't characters out there in the world currently that are, operating from wounding, but I do think we have to be super careful with, how we sort of speak to these pieces, because there are so many good and wise men and women out there in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those, both the toxic and the healthy masculine and the toxic and the healthy feminine are in all of us, right? We just are in different, we have it in different degrees and are in different places of the spectrum. But yeah,
Yeah.
are great men doing great work that are great allies, and also some that are definitely not. Yeah, and there are also some women that are, have chosen to go fully patriarchal and to make their way to the top that way. And that, I mean, in one way, it's also important to see that that is possible. Just for me, my heart always aches a little bit for all the sacrifices they've had to make. And yeah, I, I used to work in the corporate world in London, and I have had quite a lot of examples of female leaders and that, yeah, were fully patriarchal and really, really hard on other women. Yeah, I think that was, if you talk about seeds, that's, I think, for me, one of the seeds of why I started doing this work. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear a little bit about that, because you're going to come along to the retreat in Crete that I'm running from the
Yeah.
4th to the 9th of May, and you're going to be doing a session which we'll talk a little bit about in a minute. But I'd love to hear your story, a little bit about how you got into this work, where you've come from, what the little, stepping stones were for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm very excited that you are coming to Crete with a beautiful group. It's yeah, it's a place very close to my heart, and I've been there for now almost 7 years. And I, from the beginning, I felt very drawn to the wildness of the land and the raw beauty, combined with the sweetness and the lushness, the abundance. So there's something. I mean, the land is very generous in many ways, but it also has like a proper wildness to it. So this combination for me was very powerful, and it has been. And I've created a home studio there dedicated to women's work, and I've been running circles there more or less, yeah, more or less since the time I arrived on Crete, a little landing period, and focusing a lot on the relationship with the land and through our bodies with the menstrual cycle and the different other cycles in nature. So that's really been the gift of Crete for me. Before that, I was living in Oroville, where I am now, in South India. So this is a spiritual community, it's the oldest and the biggest, and it's full of people from all over the world, all over India, who have come to settle here in a forest, which used to be a barren ground, but it has been regenerated. The forest, you can see a little bit
Yeah,
of,
it looks beautiful. Yeah,
yeah,
that sounds amazing, Julie. That sounds amazing.
it's a very magical place. Yeah, they, the energy is very strong, and it draws people there. It still draws me here year after year, even though I live on Crete, but my connection is here is very strong. And this is also really where I discovered women's work. So initially I was working here as a life coach and a movement therapist. But through that work, I got very much into embodiment, and then women's embodiment, women's circles, and ultimately the menstrual cycle. But initially, it was really through the beautiful divinities, female divinities that are here and doing circle work and sadhana, spiritual practice with them, through wonderful teachers here. And yeah, that ultimately also led me to Crete, because as much as I love it here, and as Oroville itself is not, it is Indian, of course, but it has very much its own culture. So it's not super patriarchal, but the Indian culture, of course, is very patriarchal. So I started to feel that I was shutting down my body a bit to, when I was in public, to not, draw attention or not create a false idea, and this kind of behavior that, I didn't really want to embody, because I wanted to be able to be in my full spectrum of my femininity. And on Crete, I found that much easier. So yeah, that was one of the reasons for the shift.
Well, you
Yeah.
said you were working in London. So
Yeah. So that was,
how did you go from London to
yeah.
India to Crete?
Yeah. So that was the step before that. So I was in on Crete now 7 years, India 6 years, and before that it was the corporate world in London. That was the biggest shift, and that was I was working in strategy consulting. So I come from a quite an analytical academic background, and I thought well, after I graduated, I thought I could learn the most if I go into strategy consulting, and I did learn a lot, and I worked a lot with public health clients. So that was kind of part of my idealism. But then on the other hand, the actual corporate culture was so yeah, patriarchal, competitive, soul destroying. I mean, it was really a tough time. I mean, I learned a lot. I don't regret it. But at a certain point, I started to notice that I was taking on a lot of the behaviors of my bosses that I actually didn't want to take on, but that in a way I had to take on in order to keep advancing. And I just started to feel like I'm not this, I don't recognize myself anymore. And at that time, also, in order to cope with the stress and the pressure of the work, I was already doing a lot of meditation yoga, and I was writing, and I was taking a sabbatical to Thailand, and then I wanted to take a sabbatical to India. And so in the end, I didn't come back from that sabbatical to India. That was yeah. And it gave me the inspiration also to focus on coaching work, which is what I still do, although I focus more on trauma and somatic therapy. But I realized that that was kind of my gift. Like when I was on my sabbatical, I noticed that most like the thing that came easiest to me and that people responded to most was me listening and people sharing their life stories, and me responding to that, and that led to so many beautiful encounters. And I felt like, oh, that's the seed that I want to work with. So that's what led me to change a lot my life, and that I've never regretted that. Yeah, that was a very good decision. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm really curious to hear, if you don't mind, because
Yeah.
I know a lot of the women will resonate with what you said about, feeling like in that sort of 9 to 5 world that you were starting to take on characteristics of other people that you really didn't want. I'm curious about what kind of manifested in your body, and
Mm.
what is
Yeah.
life like for you now that you follow. It sounds like you follow your intuition, you follow the sort of path to more opening, heart opening work. So, can you tell
Mm.
me the difference between the two
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
body?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, so it to begin with, it wasn't 9 to 5. It was more like 8 to 8
Yeah.
on the day. So it was, yeah. So that just brought so much stress, right? And also not being able at all to follow the natural rhythm of my cycle, but always having to operate at a similar, 150% level, just brought so much exhaustion. So I, I think I had chronic anxiety, chronic stress. I remember having this constant pressure on my shoulders that would really never, or rarely, very rarely, let go. And I had also very much this sense of like I always wanted to go away. Like if I had a chance, I wanted to go away from London. I wanted to travel elsewhere. Which I mean, anyway, I like traveling, but I I then had the idea like, oh, what would it be like to live somewhere where I'm happy to be. I don't always have to go away from it. And in the end, by the time that I was ready to leave, I actually started to notice that whenever I would go into the office, I would get a headache and I would feel nauseous, and I just couldn't work. So actually, before I left for my sabbatical, I had to sign in sick for a while because it was just this, yeah, somatic reaction,
Mm.
dis-ease, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas then when I left, and the first years were a lot of yoga, daily yoga practice, sometimes even twice a day, a lot of meditation and all that. So that brought me really into the body and building a lot of strength, but also being able to gradually release all that pent up stress. I mean, it took a little while, right? Because I mean, my years in London were also, I think, about 6, 7 years. So yeah, it builds up a lot. But then gradually I started to feel so much more ease and, like you say, connection to the heart, and being able to connect with the intuition and flow with decisions that maybe didn't make so much sense logically or rationally, but then everything just kept falling into place. And yeah, I always felt that like a very beautiful blessing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now and I think that's also what really was able to open me to really feel the rhythm of the cycle within me, of the menstrual cycle, and the different phases, the different seasons.
Mm.
Because I had such an open heart, I hope I have still intuition, and really a lot of inner work to be mindful of the sensations of the body. I really listen to the subtle ones also. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's so important because we've been taught to be disconnected from our bodies, from our internal cycles, from the seasons
Yeah.
externally in nature. So you're going to be talking a little bit about this, or maybe quite a lot about this, on when you come and visit us at the retreat. Love to for you to share like the sort of things that you'll be speaking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, speaking about and also creating experience around with all of you, right? Because that's for me so important to bring the experiential element to it. And also, I mean, so most of my work is connected with cycles, but that means also with nature and with the land. And I think that was also our initial how we connected, Charlie, you and me, about okay, well, let's bring that connection with the land of Crete.
Yes, yes,
The
yes, yes. The
work with
feminine history and heritage. Yes.
yeah, yeah, because it's so powerful on Crete. On the one hand, through the actual, the physical land as it is, and the sea, because she's very, very present and very powerful. And that, in my work, I work with the 4 phases, 4 seasons, but also the 4 elements related to that. So that is always such a beautiful way to connect with the actual physical environment of where we are, right? To connect with the air of the place, the earth, of course, the sea, the water, and the fire. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I find it very important to use these very tangible physical elements, and through that connect with the spirit, the land, and that is the other element on Crete, which is very interesting, is that it was the last place in Europe that there was that there are signs of a matrilineal, so non-patriarchal society. Right? There are signs that
Mm.
this was all over Europe, also in England and Britain. But on Crete, because it was an island relatively remote, it lasted for the longest time. And yeah, you can still feel that, I think. I think that's why a lot of women are drawn to Crete and to yeah, connect with this Minoan civilization where it was really connected with the goddess. There were priestesses, and there was also what I say matrilineal. I mean that there was very much how do you say, society was organized around the family of the woman. So the children of a woman would stay in the house of the woman, and the woman would stay with the house in the house of her family, in her clan house. And if the man would visit, but he would be involved in his own sister's family, and the brothers of the mother would be raising the children more, and the grandmothers had a very important place also in raising the children and all that. So it's really a very interesting, different way of looking at how society can be organized, and I think a lot more stable for women and for children, because you don't have to go as a woman isolated into a man's family like it used to be, when then if he dies or if there's problems with the family-in-law, the woman is treated very badly and she's very isolated, and her children also are at risk. So this is yeah, a very different approach, which is I find very, very inspiring. Yeah. And just to know that there was a time before patriarchy, right? It's not always been patriarchy. There was a time. It was 2,500, 3,000 years ago, but it existed and it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's very
Mm-hmm.
empowering. Yeah. And you can feel that still on Crete.
Yeah, yes. It's always struck me because I've been going to Crete for years that the family is very strong. I didn't realize that the women are now going into the husband's family. I didn't realize that. It always just struck me because the difference for me in England is that everything's disconnected. There are so many families that are all over the place.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
my own family, my mother is
Mhm.
in, you know, a couple of counties away. My sister's all the way up in Scotland, and
Mhm.
you know, there's this real disconnect in our country, in England,
Yeah.
that I feel, and I've always felt in Crete, like, oh, how lovely, like the grandparents look after the children, and there's this real strength in family, and they're all together. But you're saying it was actually what they're actually in now is the husband's family. Is that what you're saying
Yeah.
is more
Yeah.
common? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like it used to be in England and all over Europe. Used to be the case. The woman marries into the man's family. But that is still the case in those family houses. Yeah, you see it a lot on Crete where you have different generations living together on their,
Yeah.
they often have different apartments or different parts of the house, but they're still in the same compound, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the woman moving in with the man.
Right.
So
Okay. Okay.
yeah, but the strength of the ties and the presence of the grandparents in the children's life and even to some extent a strong feminine presence is still there. There's also a lot of patriarchy nowadays, of course, but you can still find traces of yeah, the women and especially the grandmothers being very feisty and very clear
Yeah.
on what they want, and they rule the place. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I've definitely seen that. Strong women in Crete for sure.
yes,
Yeah, it's really interesting because I felt a pull to go there you know, I've been going there for years, but the pull for a long time for me felt that I didn't understand what it was.
mm,
Um,
yeah,
and I think what you're saying is like many women feel a pull to there because that there is that lineage of
mm,
respect and family.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and power also. And there would be powerful priestesses.
yeah, yeah,
There's no sign also of any kings or any kind of hierarchical organization. The
mm,
only, you know, what we have seen is that there are, yeah, these priestesses who would organize beautiful community festivals where harvest would be shared among the community and there would be rituals of the celebration of life and of the earth. And yeah, no army, no war. Of course, there would be some conflict, but that's very different than organized army, organized war.
mm,
I think we can still feel that somehow in the land, and the little that we know about the rituals that they would practice are also very much about this sense of the different seasons and the different phases and celebrating life, celebrating death, celebrating the harvest and the different seasons. And for me,
mm.
I when I learned about that, I felt such a I don't know, such a recognition of like, that's why that element of my work has flourished so much since I've been living on these lands. And I,
Mm.
you know, when I arrived, I didn't know much about that. I was just in love with the land and the beauty and the wildness and all that. But then later on, I learned more about it, and then I realized, like, wow, that's I'm doing these rituals. I mean, they're not the same, of course, as they used to do. I mean, we don't know exactly what they used to do, but yeah, I feel somehow that there's still,
Recognition.
yeah, and there's this still in the atmosphere, and through
Yes,
intuition we can pick that up. I think.
yes,
Mm,
yes.
mm,
I really, I really have the same experience. I really recognize that for myself, although I've never really been able to put words to it, or not that you often can with senses, but yeah, for the last sort of couple of years. Because I remember when I first came across, so just as a little sidebar, ladies who are listening, I first came across Julie about years ago, 4 years ago now. I think it was the year after COVID. I was looking for a retreat, and you were running a retreat on the exact dates I wanted to go. But you said we're doing dancing, and at that time in my life, 4 years ago, I was like, oh my God, no, I can't do dancing. And I really find that quite funny now, um, because I was so resistant to moving, even though I love dancing. It's quite bizarre to me. Like I could dance and I love dancing, but to dance in a group felt
Mm.
there was a lot of fear in my
Yeah.
system, in my body that came up for me at that point. And so I didn't come to your retreat, um, and ended up going on one that was quite different and not at all what would have called me forward. So I always remembered you
Mm.
as, this sort of significant moment in my life where I said no to something which I really should have said yes to, which was
Mm.
pulling me into something that I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
resisted. So what else are you going to be? Because I'm so excited about you talking about the history and the land and all of that. But what else are you hoping to bring to the retreat circle?
Yeah, well, a lot of movement. Yeah, that's just really, I love that very much. I'm also trained as a movement therapist, so I use a lot of intuitive movement to embody and to experience. I so I always make a very how to say, very tailored, very curated playlist for the circles that I host to really bring in the atmosphere and to really support us in embodying yeah the feeling, the how to say, the atmosphere of the place of Crete. Yeah, so that will be very beautiful to share with you all. And sometimes there's even some song that comes through that, you know, when we relax the body. And sometimes there's also a voice that comes. I really like working with that, and I'll probably bring my drum also. And yeah,
Oh my gosh, that will be amazing.
yeah, yeah. And I work also very intuitively, so you know, it's also, and when the group is together and when you tell me more about it, then I will also get even more inspired to add specific elements. And yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Mm.
yes. Well, it's coming together very beautifully. So yeah,
Yeah,
when we get nearer the time,
exactly. Mm.
and I'll ask for their input as well. Hopefully they'll listen to this as well, the
Mm.
ladies who are coming, or if anybody's drawn, to you through this, and we'll get some information from them. But yeah, I'm super excited. I am super excited to have you in the circle because it's something I've wanted. This Crete retreat is something I've wanted to do for years. It's been my dream for years. And it's finally, finally, finally coming into form this year. So yeah, I feel like it's going to be special, a very
Yes.
special few days.
Yeah, and a very beautiful time of the year also, that you've picked. So May is a month when it's already warm and you know, very, very pleasant, but at the same time, everything is still in bloom and fresh and green, and you know, you have this little, it's a little moment of spring on Crete that doesn't last very long, but is very precious before the real heat comes, which is also beautiful. But in terms of the you know, the nature and the flowers and the plants, it's a very nice time, May. Yeah, I
Yeah,
it's one of my
yeah.
favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for saying that because somebody I was talking to who wants to come was saying that she was a bit worried about the weather, and so thank you for
Oh,
talking about that precious, brief spring time
mm.
that you have in Crete in May.
Yeah, and spring is like, you know, 25 degrees, right? It's like an English summer. So it's, I mean, in May, you might have a day also when it's a little cloudy or even a little bit of rain, but that's, you know, for us, that's only super welcome because it's a blessing for the land, right? And
Yeah,
the thing on Crete is that then it passes and it's sunny again, the sun comes out and it's super nice and warm, and the nights are still cool, so you can rest also. And yeah, it's a blessed time. Mm.
Yeah. I can also hear the birds in the background there, which sound amazing.
There's a lot of crows, but there's also a peacock that is living in the tree behind. So he's my friend. He comes out sometimes with his beautiful plumes, feathers. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Julie, for because I know you were a bit worried about being in India and the Wi-Fi, and we've managed to make it work, and I'm absolutely
Yeah.
thrilled. Where
Yeah.
can people find you if they
Mm.
want to, if they're just interested in the work that you do? Where can people find you?
Yeah. So my website is maitrecoaching.com. I will send you the links also, so it's easy to find. On Instagram, it's New Moon Sisters, and then on Facebook, it's my personal name, so Julie Caroline Mosmuller. Yeah, look forward to
Great.
connecting.
Yeah, and I will share
But
all that.
especially in person on Crete, that's very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, because we've never actually met in person, have
Yeah.
we?
Yes.
But you also know the sound healer, don't you, that's coming to the retreat?
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yes,
And
she's
she's,
wonderful.
yeah, I'll see if I can get her on as well. Anyway, thank you so much for your time coming to us from
A
India.
pleasure.
I'm so looking forward to being with you in Circle on that week in Crete, and have a wonderful rest of your trip to India. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Have a lovely afternoon and see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.